Hey guys, this is Markuis for CardRunners.com, and today I'm going to be continuing with the footage at 100 NL heads up on stars, which I commented on earlier. I skipped ahead a little bit. The last hand that was in the video was a turn shove with the nut flush draw and a gut shot, and I'm still not sure if I like that play. I think in retrospect I prefer a flat, but it is what it is, and now we'll move on to some other hands. So Bad Player Eva is someone I was playing for most of the footage, / all of the footage, I think, in the first part. And one thing to remember about the way he played is that I think he had some bluff heavy ranges in a few spots, namely when I check back flop, I think he would barrel a little bit too wide. And I don't think I picked up on that throughout the video. So let's see if I make some folds, which may not have been great. And SBM Rue is... he seems to be playing kind of standard, maybe a little bit tight. He won a buy-in off me with queens versus jacks, and then he won another buy-in when I made a call down with ace high, and he had trips, so that one didn't feel great. But I think he leaves soon. We'll see. I decide to check back with 5-8 on the top left. I think my standard would be to bet there and bet a lot of turns, but I decided to check back. I don't think he's check raising too many flops. If someone was check raising a lot of flops, then maybe I'd consider checking back a marginal draw like this. But against him, I think I'd rather just bet and continue barreling on a lot of runouts. If he checks to me on this turn, I'll bet. If he bets, I have to fold, unfortunately, I think. I think if I raise, it doesn't represent very much, and I don't think I can really call with 5 high flush draw and a gut shot. So I fold. Bottom left, I think check raising is perfectly fine, and I think check calling is also okay. I guess I decided to check call. I think with the backdoor spade, it makes it maybe a little bit more appealing to check call because I'll be able to check call on some more turns than I would if I didn't have the backdoor spade. But either way, I think both options are fine. I think on this board, I have a lot of draws that don't have too much showdown value, such as 5-7, 7-8, 10-8, 10-7, and some flush draws. And I think those are better candidates for check raising because they won't win at showdown very often. So I think since I've got so many draws without showdown value, it might be a good idea to play the draws that do have showdown value a little bit more passively in order to not have too draw heavier range or too weak flop check raising range. And he barrels on this turn, and unfortunately, I think I have to fold, but in retrospect, I think calling's fine. He has a lot of draws, which I still beat, and I have some equity if I'm behind, so I think calling is fine. I don't think this is a spot where Bad Player Ever was barreling too much. I think for the most part he wasn't c-betting super wide, and I also think that he was the type of player to c-bet all his pairs and then also keep betting them a little bit wide on turns, so he could bet a hand like 9x here, so that would make a check call against him with king high a little bit less appealing. But I think against most people I like check calling the turn here. There are just so many draws he can barrel, which king high beats. So the top right table, I think we end up playing him for a while. I c-bet the flop and I turn a gut shot, but I just don't think that a lot of his flop calling range folds here, so I don't think I'd have that wide a bluffing range, and if I was bluffing the turn, I would definitely try and bluff the river, but it's a spot where so much of his turn calling range is going to be king x that just doesn't fold on many rivers, so I don't mind having kind of an exploitably low bluffing percentage on the turn here against most people, and I don't represent an ace too well after I c-bet the flop, I think, so I think it's a check back. So I would mostly check back my aces on the flop. Top left, I bet. Kind of an ugly board, but nevertheless, top two. If he raises me, I'm not going to feel super thrilled about it, but I'll still get it in for sure. I think against someone who is who bets too wide when you check them in spots like this, you could consider check raising and just trying to shovel in money on this flop before the board gets ugly. But I think SBM Rue isn't that type of player, and against most people, they're going to check back with a lot of hands which would call, and which you don't really want them to check back with. So, you know, a hand like Queen Jack, Jack 10, or those hands with spades and stuff like that, I think they check back a lot, but they're going to call if you bet. It's not really that much a protection bet because they're still going to call with those hands, and if they're going to suck out with those hands, they're going to suck it anyways, but you do get value from them. So he checks back on the top right, and I lead the turn. I think that's a good lead. I think he's got a lot of ace highs here that check back. If someone's delayed c-betting a ton, then maybe I'll consider checking in a spot like this. But for the most part, I'd assume that people just have showdown with ace or king high here and are trying to show it down. So I'll bet. Bottom left, I get check raised, and he hasn't check raised me too much, I think, although he did check raise me once in the first part of the footage. But nevertheless, I think it's a fold. I think that he could definitely show up with some jack X's here for value.